Eric Rohn didn't mean to see her. The human soldier had been lost for 3 days in the jungle of Zelver 5. His survival pod had crashed during re-entry. His communicator was broken. His supplies were gone. He had no food, no water, only blood. On his arm and dirt in his mouth. He stumbled through thick green vines, each step heavier than the last. His vision blurred. Everything hurt. He just wanted water. That's when he heard it, soft splashes ahead. A stream. Eric pushed through the last wall of hanging moss and froze. There, standing in the water, was a girl. Not just any girl. She was glowing. Her skin was golden white, as if made of soft light. Her long silver hair floated behind her like mist. 2 wings shimmered on her back, huge, delicate, and folded. She stood with her back to him, naked, rinsing herself under the moonlight. The water sparkled around her body like it obeyed her. Eric's mouth dropped open. Then his heart stopped. He turned his head fast, whispering, I'm sorry. But it was already too late. A shrill scream cut the air. Dozens of alien warriors dropped down from the trees like ghosts. Their armor was smooth and white. Their eyes glowed. Spears of blue light pointed straight at Eric's chest. One of them shouted something in a language Eric didn't understand. But the anger in his voice said everything. The glowing girl quickly stepped out of the stream, wrapping herself in a thin white robe. She looked straight at Eric. Her eyes, they weren't angry. They were terrified. Don't hurt him, she said softly. Her voice was like music. It was a mistake. He didn't know. The warrior leader, a tall man with a scar across his face, raised his weapon. He saw the daughter unclothed. He growled. He must die. That is the law. No, she cried. I call the right of binding. Gasps came from the warriors. Even Eric blinked, confused. The what now? The leader stared at her, shocked. The Laya. Are you serious? She stepped forward. I saw him first. He did not force himself. He turned away. That means I choose him. By ancient law, he must marry me. Eric's stomach twisted. Wait, hold on, marry you? Valaya turned to him. Her lips trembled. Her hands shook. I know this sounds crazy, but if you don't agree, they'll kill you, and me. Eric stared at her. She looked young, maybe his age. Her face was soft, beautiful, but there was pain in her eyes. Real pain. Fear. He opened his mouth to speak, but he didn't know what to say. Decide now, the commander barked. If you deny the binding, we burn you both. You have 1 minute. The warriors raised their spears again. Valaya leaned closer, whispering just for him. Please, just nod. Just say yes. We can figure the rest out later. I swear I won't hurt you. But if you say no, this ends here. Eric's heart raced. He didn't know her. He didn't know this world. He didn't even know what binding really meant. But he knew this. He didn't want to die. And somehow, he didn't want her to die either. Slowly he nodded. Yes, he said quietly. I accept. Valia closed her eyes for a second and exhaled, like a huge weight left her shoulders. But then, she turned her head away, and Eric saw it. Just for a moment her face twisted in guilt, like she had just lied to him. Asterisk. Eric thought agreeing to the binding would save his life. He was wrong. The warriors didn't smile. No one cheered. They only tied his hands tighter. He was dragged through the jungle by rope, arms burning, feet cut by sharp stones. Velleia walked ahead of him, silent, her wings folded and her head down. Not once did she look back. They reached a strange clearing. Bright blue fires floated in the air, glowing symbols carved into the trees. A huge statue stood at the center. A winged female with her hands raised to the sky, her stone eyes blank. Welcome to the sanctum, the commander said. The sacred place of the binding. Eric was pushed to his knees. His shirt was ripped off. A priestess came forward and began to paint his bare chest with gold. The brush tickled, but the paint burned. Not hot, just wrong. Like it didn't belong on human skin. He looked to Velia. She was standing on a raised platform now, being wrapped in glowing silk by two robed seraphim. Her eyes met his only for a second, and then dropped again. What was she hiding? The priestess spoke. To him softly, "You are lucky. Seraphim never choose outside their kind. She must see something in you." Eric gave a dry laugh. "Yeah, my timing." The priestess didn't smile. Suddenly, horns blew from the treetops. A deep, echoing sound that made the ground shake. Warriors formed two lines. Velia walked slowly between them, barefoot, head bowed. She reached Eric and stood beside him. "Look at her," the commander shouted. "Look at your bride." Eric did duck. She was beautiful truly. But she was also shaking. "Speak the vow," the priestess said. Velia whispered, "I bind myself to him in body and breath until the stars fall." The priestess looked to Eric. I bind myself to her," he said, voice dry, "in body and breath until the stars fall." The priestess raised her staff. Then by flame and feather, the bond is sealed, nitrogen monoxide. A new voice cut through the air. A male voice, loud and furious. Everyone turned. A young seraphim man stormed into the clearing, wings outstretched, eyes glowing. He looked barely older than Velia, but his face was filled with rage. "You can't marry him," he shouted. "He's human. He's filth." Velia flinched. "Brother, please don't." Eric blinked. "Brother?" The man pointed at Eric. "You broke our laws to save this creature? This weak animal?" "He saved me," Velia snapped. "You weren't there when I fell. He didn't touch me. He turned away. And now I've chosen." "You think this is love?" the brother growled. "You think this joke of a ceremony will protect you from the council?" Velia's hands clenched. "It's not a joke." The commander stepped forward. "Enough. The binding has been accepted. If you interfere, you defy the ancients." The brother hissed, "Then let the ancients watch me." He lifted his hand. A blue spear shot from his palm straight at Eric's heart. Velia moved faster than anyone thought possible. She stepped in front of Eric. The spear struck her, shoulder exploding into sparks. She didn't fall, but her robe was torn. Blood stained the silk. Eric grabbed her. "You're bleeding," she gasped, holding her wound. "Run!" "What?" "Run now." Suddenly, half the warriors began shouting. Some raised their weapons to the brother. Others pointed them at Eric. It was chaos. Velia grabbed Eric's arm. "You trusted me once. Do it again." Eric didn't ask questions. He ran. Eric woke up in chains. His head throbbed. His back ached. Dirt filled his mouth, and blood crusted near his ear. He wasn't sure how long he'd been unconscious. But when his eyes adjusted to the dark, he realized he was in a caged stone walls, bars of glowing metal, and a strange heat in the air. It wasn't fire. It was breath. Something huge was breathing nearby. He crawled to the bars and peeked. Through a narrow gap, the chamber beyond was lit by fire pits. Warriors stood in rows, chanting in low voices. At the far end was an arena, and inside it, chained to a stone slab, was something Eric had never seen before. A beast. Its skin looked like living lava, cracked, red-hot, pulsing. 4 arms, each ending in claws like swords. Its face had no eyes, only a wide mouth dripping flame. The heat from its body made the air shimmer. A trial beast. "Why am I here?" Eric whispered. Someone answered. "Because you married her." He turned. Velia stood outside the cage, still wearing a torn robe, her wing bandaged. She looked tired, guilty. "They think you're weak," she said, "that you're unworthy. So they called for the trial of flesh and fire." Eric stood slowly. "Trial? I didn't agree to any damn trial." Velia didn't smile. "In our law, marriage isn't words. It's earned. Your body must prove your soul. He stared at her. So if I survive this, they let us stay. Married? She hesitated. If you survive, she said softly, they might let you live. Eric's stomach dropped. She looked away. I tried to stop them, but the council overruled me. They say you're just a soft-skinned ape. Thanks, he muttered. But, she looked into his eyes now, voice low. I told them they were wrong. Eric blinked. Why would you do that? Velleia didn't answer. Instead, she touched the bars gently. You'll be given one weapon. The beast cannot be killed, only survived. 3 minutes inside the arena. If you last, they'll let you go. And if I don't, they'll burn your body. And I'll be taken to the breeder's chamber. That's what they do to failed brides. Eric's fists clenched. He didn't understand this world. He didn't understand this woman. But he understood one thing. He wasn't going to let anyone throw her into a breeder's cage like livestock. Then open the damn gate, he growled. Minutes later, Eric stood in the center of the arena, shirtless, holding a dull, curved blade. The beast's chains dropped. It roared, fire bursting from its mouth, and charged. Eric rolled to the side, barely dodging its claws. The sand under his feet caught fire. The smell of smoke and burning hair filled the air. He ran, jumped, slashed at the beast's leg. It didn't even flinch. Come on, he shouted. The crowd watched in silence. Velleia stood among them, hands clenched, eyes wide with fear. The beast swung its tail. Eric flew back, hit the wall, and collapsed. Blood poured from his lip. His ribs screamed. The beast stomped forward, chest glowing like molten iron. Eric crawled backward, then looked up. A spear was sticking out of the wall, half buried. He reached for it, teeth gritted. The beast was almost on him. He grabbed the spear, ripped it out, turned, and threw it straight into the beast's open mouth. The impact exploded in sparks. The creature howled, coughed, and collapsed, roaring into the sand. It wasn't dead, but it stopped moving. Eric stood, chest heaving, sweat and blood running down his face. Silence. Then, a single voice. 3 minutes. The gong rang. Velleia ran to him as the gate opened. You did it, she breathed. Eric looked at her, dazed. You okay? She asked. No, he muttered. But I'm not dead either. Velleia smiled, then did something strange. She kissed his forehead. You're more than I thought. But Eric didn't smile. He noticed something behind her. The warriors weren't cheering. They were whispering, plotting. And one of them held a strange black blade. Asterisk. The night was too quiet. Eric sat on the edge of the stone bed inside the bridal tent. His chest still burned from the trial, and his arms ached with every breath. Fresh bandages covered his ribs, but the bruises underneath screamed. Outside, the Seraphim guards stood still like statues. The firelight flickered against their golden armor. They hadn't said a word since escorting him here. He was supposed to be a husband now, but he felt more like a prisoner with fancier curtains. The flap of the tent rustled. Velleia entered. She wore a loose silver robe that shimmered in the torchlight. Her long hair fell over one shoulder, but Eric didn't stare at her body. He stared at her face. She looked tired, not just physically but in her soul. You should be resting, she said quietly. He raised an eyebrow. Hard to rest when half the people outside want you dead. Velleia looked down. She walked over, sat beside him, and handed him a small metal cup. What is it? Eric asked. Moonroot, she whispered. It'll ease the pain. Drink slowly. He took a sip. It tasted like honey and ash. For a moment, they sat in silence. Then he asked, Why did your brother hate me so much? Velleia flinched. He doesn't just hate you, she said. He hates me. Eric turned to her. But you're his sister. She laughed softly, bitter. I'm not really his sister, not by blood. My mother was a priestess. She fell in love with a human long ago. She was punished. And I was taken in by the royal line, raised like one of them. But they never saw me as equal. Eric's eyes narrowed. So you're half human? She nodded. That's why you chose me, isn't it? He said. Valaya didn't answer right away. Then she looked into his eyes. I didn't choose you because of what you are, Eric. I chose you because of what you did. What did I do? You turned away. She touched his hand gently. You could have stared. You could have taken what wasn't yours. But you turned away. Even though you were starving, dying, you still respected me. Her voice cracked a little. No one here ever does. Eric swallowed hard. The heat in the tent felt thicker now. He didn't know what to say, but her hand stayed on his dot. Then she leaned close and whispered, We have to leave. Tonight. Eric blinked. What? The binding wasn't enough. The council still wants your blood. They'll wait until the festival ends. Then they'll say you broke some law. They always find a reason. Eric stood. So the trial. The wedding. All of this was fake? No, she said. I meant it. But they didn't. He clenched his jaw. How do we get out? There's a passage under the sacred lake, she whispered. Only priestesses know it. It leads to the old jungle trails. You've used it before? She hesitated. Once, when I was a child. When I tried to run. What stopped? You? My wings weren't strong enough. Eric looked at her bandaged shoulder. And now? She smiled sadly. Now, they're broken in other ways. A sudden noise outside made them freeze. A guard's voice, harsh, angry. Valaya's eyes widened. They're checking early. We don't have time. She grabbed a cloth sack and stuffed it with dried fruits, water, and a small crystal knife. We leave now, through the back. Eric followed her, muscles stiff but ready. As they slipped out the rear flap. He looked back at the glowing tent, at the life they were supposed to have. Then, at Valaya. And the fear in her eyes. This wasn't just escape. This was something else. Something deeper. They almost made it. The tunnel beneath the sacred lake was cold, narrow, and breathing darkness. Eric and Valaya had crawled through it in silence, dripping mud, whispering breath, her injured wing trembling each time it brushed the jagged ceiling. They emerged near the edge of the jungle, just as the twin moons rose. Eric could almost smell freedom in the leaves, but they weren't alone. A net of silver light dropped from the trees, wrapping around them like a glowing cage. Dozens of royal guards. Step forward, Valaya screamed. Eric swung his arm to block. Her too late. A stun bolt hit his chest. He collapsed, gasping as the electricity tore through his ribs. From behind the guards, her brother appeared. The same Seraphim man who tried to kill Eric before. He didn't look angry this time. He looked satisfied. I told the council you'd run, he said coldly. You're half human after all. Lies are in your blood. Valaya stood between Eric and the guards, her arms spread. Let him go. He passed your trial. He earned his right. His right? The brother laughed. He was never meant to survive. You cheated for him. I did nothing but choose, she snapped. He stepped closer, grabbed her by the wing hard. She gasped in pain. Eric tried to rise, but his legs failed him. I won't kill him yet, the brother sneered. Not until the crowd sees what happens to traitors. He turned to Valaya. And you'll go back where you belong. He pulled a chain from his belt, black metal, twisted with runes, and wrapped it tightly around her wings. Valaya cried out. The metal burned her skin. Her wings curled inward like they were folding into death. Stop it! Eric shouted. Two guards kicked him down. His face hit the mud. Blood filled his mouth. Valaya tried to crawl to him, her voice shaking. I'm sorry, Eric. I shouldn't have brought you into this. Don't say that. He growled. You saved me. We can still. She shook her head. They'll never stop, she said. Because of who I am. Because of what I am. The brother raised his voice. Take the human to the hall of judgment. Let the people watch him beg. And her, a guard asked. The brother's eyes gleamed. Chain her to the altar. Let her remember what happens to broken wings. They dragged Eric through the main city in chains, half-naked, bloodied. Crowds gathered, whispers followed. Is that the human? He touched her, they say. No, she chose him. That's worse. Eric's vision blurred, but he saw one thing clearly. The statue in the square dot, it was the same winged goddess from before, only now. Vel-Leah was tied to its base. Her wings were chained wide. The black metal was still burning. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just looked at Eric and mouthed 2 words. Don't break. Inside the Hall of Judgment, Eric was thrown onto cold marble. Torches burned blue. The council stood in a circle above him, watching. A priestess began to read. Eric Rohn, human, uninvited, unworthy. You are charged with seducing a sacred daughter, defiling the binding, and attempting escape. He coughed. I never seduced anyone. Then why did she choose you? The priestess snapped. Eric stared up at them. Because I didn't treat her like a prize. Silence, then laughter, but not from Vel-Leah's brother. He stepped forward. Then let's see what's inside you, human. He pulled a blade from his robe, black crystal. Eric's breath caught. This wasn't a trial. This was an execution. Asterisk. Eric knelt before the altar. His hands were bound behind his back. His knees pressed into cold stone. Blood dripped slowly from a cut above his eye, trailing down his cheek like a tear. The council stood above him, silent, watching. The high priestess held the black ceremonial dagger over his head. This wasn't justice. This was theater. Behind him, the plaza echoed with voices. Hundreds of seraphim had gathered, flickering wings, glowing eyes, and whispered judgment. Let them see the price of shame, the high priestess said. Then she raised the dagger. Stop! A voice cried. It was Vel-Leah, still chained, still bleeding. Her wings were pulled tight against the altar in the square, burned and trembling, but she still screamed for him. Let him fight. She cried, give him a blade. If he loses, you win anyway. But if you're afraid of a human. The crowd gasped. The high priestess frowned. You dishonor your kind again, girl. Vel-Leah looked at Eric, her voice breaking. Don't die like this, she whispered. If you're going to fall standing. Eric raised his head. His vision spun. Blood filled his mouth. His arms were numb, but something inside him burned. Not fear. Fury. He stood. The guards tried to force him down again, but he growled like an animal, shouldered one aside, head-butted. Another. The crowd shouted. The council hesitated. And for the first time, they looked afraid. The high priestess spoke fast. Then let it be witnessed. Trial by combat. The human will die by the blade of purity. Vel-Leah's brother stepped forward again. His armor was ceremonial now. A long white cloak behind him, in his hand, a crystal sword that pulsed with light. Eric was handed a dull blade. It was cracked, old, barely sharp. He laughed. You're really making this fair, the brother sneered. You'll last 10 seconds. Eric pointed the blade at him. That's all I need. The fight began. The crowd stood silent. The Seraphim Prince lunged forward, his strikes fast. Flawless. But Eric ducked the first, dodged the second, blocked the third. Years of human training kicked in. Earth's brutal hand-to-hand drills. Street fights, survival. He didn't fight clean. He fought to live. The prince sliced across Eric's shoulder. Blood sprayed. Eric stabbed the dull blade into his enemy's thigh. The prince screamed, stumbled. Eric tackled him, punched, again and again. Fists slamming into glowing flesh. The prince flared his wings, blasted Eric back with a shockwave. Eric hit the ground hard. He coughed blood, but stood again, one eye swollen shut. One hand broken, and still. He came back. Vel-Leah shouted from the chains, you're winning. The council panicked that the high priestess looked ready to end the fight. But Eric moved first. He sprinted blade low and plunged it into the prince's chest. A burst of light exploded from the impact. The prince fell dead. Silence. Then screams. The council stood in rage. He killed a seraphim heir. This is treason. No, Velia said, voice shaking. This is proof. She ripped the chain from the altar with a final cry, her burned wings stretching, flaring. The crowd gasped. A wave of light pulsed from her skin. She is ascending. Someone shouted. Eric blinked, barely standing. Velia floated forward. Wings spread, body shining like a living star. The old laws are broken, she said. From this day, I claim my rightful blood. Not as priestess, not as prisoner. She reached for Eric, but as queen. Eric collapsed. She caught him. He smiled up at her. So, you were hiding more than just wings. She kissed his forehead, whispering, and you were more than just a man. The sky cracked open. It didn't rumble. It didn't storm. It tore, a great wound in the stars, spreading like fire across the heavens. From it came something no seraphim had seen in generations. A god, not just a being of light, but something. Ancient, huge, impossible. Its form was half invisible, half alive, wings of flame. Eyes like dying suns. A voice that shook bones. You broke the binding laws. You shed royal blood. You dare raise a human above heaven. The crowd fell to their knees. Even the council dropped their weapons. Only two figures stayed standing. Eric, bloodied, shaking, but still upright. And Velia, her wings blazing with golden light, her hair flying like fire. She held Eric's arm. They called him, Eric coughed. Who? The first flame, she whispered. The god who gave the seraphim their wings. The god's voice thundered again. Choose, burn with your human, or abandon him and return to the fold. Velia stepped forward. Eric grabbed her hand. You don't have to. She turned to him. No, she said. I do. Then she looked up at the god and screamed, I choose him. The ground exploded. Fire rained down from the sky, rivers of gold and red. The god raised its arm, and a wave of divine fire slammed into the earth. Velia threw herself over Eric. He waited for death, but it never came. When he opened his eyes, a dome of white wings covered them. Velia had shielded them, both glowing brighter than the god itself. She whispered, I am Seraphim, but I am also his. The god flinched. A ripple tore through the sky. The flames pulled back. Then the impossible happened. Velia rose, lifted off the ground, her body now half light, half flesh. Her wounds vanished. Her wings stretched wider, brighter, burning hotter than the god's fire. The crowd gasped. Even the council trembled. She was no longer a daughter of the seraphim. She was becoming something new. You gave us wings, she shouted at the sky. But you never gave us freedom. He did. The god's eyes narrowed. Then burn with him. It struck. Velia screamed and unleashed everything. A blast of pure light erupted from her chest, hitting the god head on. Sky ripped again. The god staggered and vanished into the void. Gone. Just like that. Silence. Ash floated down like snow. Eric coughed. What just happened? Velia dropped to her knees beside him, her glow fading slowly. You just made history. She smiled weakly. He touched her face. Are you okay? I am now, she whispered. You didn't run. I never wanted to. She laughed softly, pressing her forehead to his. You saved me, she said. But more than that. You reminded me I wasn't made to bow. He smiled. I never saw you as a goddess anyway. Good, she whispered. Then you'll love me better than they ever worshipped me. Days passed. The council was dissolved. Velia was crowned not as princess, not as priestess, but as something new. Queen of the broken sky. Her first decree? No human shall ever kneel before Seraphim again. Not after one stood when all others bowed. Eric stayed by her side, not as king, not as ruler, but as the only man who'd earned her trust and her love.